Well, this actually follows on from that discussion, really, because a lot of the problems we just discussed, really is about how we've got a generation now for several generations of weak people in our society, mainly weak men. And I want to talk about, is it in the water? So are people choosing to be weak, or are we creating? And I've got mine's filtered water.
Oh, is it? Well, yes, the estrogen's MIT.
So when we talk about weak men, first of all, we think about people like Sam Smith. This big, girly, narcissistic
Every
fool.
moment I'm reminded of Sam Smith. It's just,
But again, we've always had people like Sam Smith.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we've had them throughout history.
Yeah.
But then when we look at some other characters, such as Prince Harry, Lewis Hamilton,
Yeah.
who to a certain extent have been successful. I mean, Lewis Hamilton, world champion, excellent at
Sam
something.
Smith is successful.
Yeah. Prince Harry, he's served in, a theatre of war, but yet
Allegedly, yeah.
both of them still don't understand what it is to be a real man. And I get criticised for using the term real man. Who am I to decide what a real man is? And
I'm
real
a man. I get to decide.
Exactly.
If a woman gets to decide what a woman is, it's your own logic.
Yeah.
Like,
We all know what a man is.
Yes.
We all know.
ultimately, a man is someone who takes responsibility. That's what a man
Who
is.
provides and protects for his family, his community, his country.
Yeah. Which you can summarize as just saying takes responsibility.
Yeah.
This is what you're responsible for.
We've also got other weak men in society now. A good example would be...
Prince Harry hasn't been crying again or something, has he?
Not that I know, but I don't watch anything. I turn off. I turn off. He just annoys me. He's like a big child.
Yeah.
But someone who I liked for decades was Will Smith. I liked the vast majority of his films. The series Bad Boys
Yep.
is one of my favourite film series.
Yep.
I won't be watching full because I look at him now and I just see a big crybaby. I see a man who knows what it is to act like a real man because he's made a career out of it. But he's been cuckolded by a woman. He's now been degraded. He's now been embarrassed across the world.
He's been emasculated because
Yes.
he lives in California and Hollywood culture.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't think he's happy. Like, I've been following like Will Smith's personal drama for a little while because it's sad to me because Will Smith seems like a nice guy. Seems like a likable chap,
He's just emotionally weak.
Yeah.
And he's allowed this to happen to him where a real man wouldn't have allowed this to happen.
And you can tell by the people he's surrounded by. Essentially, they've abused him, I would say. It's a form of abuse that's happened to him.
And when I use the term weak men, obviously I don't just mean physically because Will Smith's someone like 6'3".
Oh, yeah. He's
180
very physically
pounds.
strong man.
He's a big guy. I mean,
That doesn't matter.
No, because
that's not what it's
emotionally, he's a weak man. He's an inferior version of what he should be.
Yes.
Who wants to be an inferior version of anything? It's just not attractive. You need to try to be the best you can be.
This is actually amazing. The amazing example that it's Will Smith that is the butt of like Hollywood, the butt of Hollywood at this point. He's the person. Like, there are so many memes of him being a cuck and crying, and being pathetic and weak, and it's like, dude, you're massive and you're built like a house and you're a multi-millionaire. You're one of the most famous actors in the world.
Yep.
How are you the butt of all the jokes? And it really is because of this moral weakness on his part.
Yeah.
Insufferable.
He could just turn around and say, no,
Yeah.
no more.
Yeah.
To his wife, you out.
Yeah.
Until you change your attitude and your behaviour. I'm not having this.
Yep.
He's got the money to employ PR
Literally do
firms.
whatever he
Well,
wants, Yeah.
One of his children has divorced him.
Yep.
Which means he's now not legally responsible for his child because his child held him responsible for a failed film.
Jaden is essentially a effeminate trans person. It's
So
like, what are you doing? Man?
It's his whole family is you look at it and you think, no wonder he's got mental health issues.
He thought he was being kind. That's what
Yes.
it is.
Yeah.
He thought he was being kind, and everyone around him told him, "Oh yeah, no, this is the softy lefty thing to do."
Yep.
And he knows that deep down, the right wing thing to have been set the boundaries, enforce the boundaries, and just not budge on it.
Yeah.
That would have been man.
And he hasn't got an excuse because he's portrayed those characters in films.
He has.
All he had to do was act like that.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So
what would Uncle Phil think, Will?
Yeah.
Uncle Phil wouldn't be having any of this.
But these men have become too touchy-feely, too girly.
Yeah.
They moisturise too much.
Yeah.
They cry at films and they just want to be kind.
Yeah.
And that's how I define these men. They're usually feminists.
Yep.
They're usually vegan or vegetarians. And they're nearly always some sort of form of socialist as well.
Yes.
Can't we just share everything and live in
Yeah.
utopia? It doesn't work like that. So the question we need to ask is, Are people born that way? Does society force them to take those roles? Or could there be something they're digesting that's changing strong men slowly into weak men?
I think it's a combination of all of these things, actually.
Let's have a look at the first link. So we all know we put fluoride in the water
Oh, they just care about our teeth.
in the UK.
They just care about our teeth. Aren't you worried about dental hygiene?
I'm having my first tooth taken out in a fortnight. It's the first time at 55 I'm losing my first tooth.
See, that was the fluoride in the water that kept your teeth in good
Well,
condition.
I'm happy, but there's nothing wrong with fluoride in the water. I've seen no evidence that there's anything. I'm just letting people know that the state things happen where they will put chemicals that they think benefit you, and putting fluoride in water is one of those things.
There's a whole rabbit hole that we're going to avoid here. I am aware of it. Moving on.
You can tell me off screen then what that rabbit hole
I
is.
will tell you off screen what
Right.
the rabbit hole is.
So, what we need to understand is over 250,000 women in the UK take the contraceptive pill.
Yes.
Over 90% of that drug leaves the body
Oh,
through
what percentage of women, sorry? What number of women?
250,000.
Is that it?
Yeah. Take the pill daily.
I would have thought it'd been more than that.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, there's still a lot of women,
Yeah.
but like I would have thought it'd been more than that. Okay, fair enough.
No, the pill's becoming less and less desirable by women. There's more and more evidence coming out now about how it ruins their lives, ruins their mental state, ruins their body. So,
Well, this is why I've got so many kids, Nick.
right.
My wife hates the pill.
There we go. So less and less women actually taking it.
Condoms.
It's not the panacea we thought it was 30, 40 years ago.
No.
But 90% of that drug, it leaves the female body in her urine.
Yep.
Goes through the toilet into the water system. And what we don't know is our water processing plants have not been designed to take pharmaceuticals out of the water.
Right.
It only takes out bacteria, viruses, things like
Right,
that.
right.
And the reason why we know that is because if you go to link number 2, in London, you can find cocaine in your drinking water
Oh, can you?
because there's that many people taking cocaine in London, snorting it, digesting it, sniffing it. It all gets urinated out into the water supply. It gets recycled in the water supply, goes back in your tap.
See,
and it contains cocaine.
I'm thinking some sort of modern Breaking Bad where some savvy drug dealer's like, hang on a
Distills
sec.
the water.
Yeah, exactly. If I distill water, I can get cocaine out of the water from the tap. Like you could, I mean, don't do this. Obviously, this is not financial advice. You know, but it would be a good fictional series if that were.
I'm just being told shares in Thames Water have just shut up.
Yeah, but no, that doesn't surprise me at all. Actually,
So this just shows that there is pharmaceuticals in the water, and
Yeah,
we can't get rid of them.
yeah.
So the question we need to ask ourselves is, what is the residue of the female pill in our drinking water doing to men?
Well, it can't be anything good.
Yeah.
I mean, surely it's turning the frogs gay.
It's turning female fish into male fish.
Transing the fish.
It's transing the fish. So let's look at link 3.
Yeah.
So we have a study from the Journal of Aquatic Toxicology.
God, this is only 3
Now,
years ago. Isn't it?
I only bought that magazine because I thought it was a comic. I thought it was the evil arch enemy of Aquatic Man, Aquaman.
Right. Yeah.
Turns out it's not. So they've done some tests and some controls, and they've come up with this. So fish who are exposed to 5 nanograms per litre of, I'm going to say this wrong, ethinylestradiol, which is found in contraceptive pills. So fish that are exposed to only 5 nanograms produce fewer offspring and more females.
Right.
These scientists have found levels of that chemical in water supplies up to 12 times higher.
Right. So let me guess. What we're saying with this is that women's liberation is not only socially destroying the country, but it's also chemically destroying the country by
Castrating men.
by effeminizing men.
Yeah.
Right. This is not a conversation that the average woman is prepared to have, I think.
It's not, and I don't even think it's the fault of women because
No.
who created the pill?
I'm sure as a man.
3 men created the pill.
Yeah, there we go.
And why did they create the pill? Again, because men create lots of things to benefit the lives of women.
They do. Women's liberation was all the rage back in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
Here. You know, now that you're liberated and you've turned the men into women, and the civilization is collapsing, how are we going to have that conversation with women? Be like, look, you've got to stop destroying civilization.
Yep. Now, other studies where they've looked at estrogen in the water
Yep.
have found that male fish start developing ovaries and other female characteristics.
And if you look at young men today, the preponderance of like fat on the chest is something that I've noticed, that people have noticed, right? This is something that, like, you know, the male fitness gurus
Yeah.
always talk about, the sort of chest fat that young men get these days. And when you see video and pictures from the 70s of, like, you know, 15-year-olds doing the sports and stuff like that, they're all in incredible physical condition. And it's like, yeah, something has definitely changed here.
Yeah, we'll put a pin in that because
Okay.
we're going to get to that
Yeah,
with
okay.
rats in a minute.
Okay.
So if we bring up the next link. So studies worldwide are showing the sperm count in men has dropped by over 50% in the last 60 years. If that isn't ringing bells, alarm bells throughout the world that we're becoming impotent, that there will be no more offspring, there will be no more arguments over the LBGT alphabet people because there'll be no more people,
Yeah.
then I don't know what will.
What will the American Empire do?
Save the sperm.
Yeah. That's what they're going to save the
make it-
sperm because we need more gay people in the future.
They'll
right?
make it illegal to masturbate because that's a waste of sperm.
Ah, Kellogg wins again.
So whatever we're doing is having an effect on men. I'm not saying this is purely down to the female pill, because it's not, because it's also about what else we eat, what we.
Lifestyle, diet.
So let's look at diet.
Yeah.
So we've all. Well, before we get to diet, one more thing about chemicals.
Yeah.
So there's something called bisphenol A. So not bisphenol B. Don't get mixed up with a B.
I'll try not to.
And I had one person who said it was C. No. It's bisphenol A.
Okay.
And that is a chemical we use that's in large containers. They also coat the inside of tin food with it to stop the tin rusting.
Oh, right.
American scientists are saying that has a worse effect on male sperm count than the female pill does.
Brilliant.
And we're coating our food containers in it.
See, this is kind of why I hate science. It's like, you know, we've discovered we can do this with this. It's like, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
What are the consequences? Well, we don't think there are any. It's like, yeah, okay, that's great.
We don't know yet.
Exactly. We don't know yet. This thing, like, everything is so connected, and there are unexpected effects that pop up generations later with consequences that you would never have connected these things to. Like, I'm coating my food tin in a non-stick residue. Why is that going to drop sperm rates? What are you, a lunatic? And yet here we are.
Yep.
Like, it's like, okay, you just didn't know. There's so much about the world you don't know. We're so arrogant as well. But anyway, sorry.
Yep. And then you remember in the 70s we had that drug, thalidomide,
Yep,
that
yep.
damaged a whole generation
And
of
oh,
babies.
it's awful as well, because the purpose of it was to relieve, like, pregnancy cramps or something.
Yeah, yeah. Morning sickness.
Yeah,
something
morning
like that.
sickness. Yeah. And it was just like, yeah, okay, you are also deforming your babies.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh God.
Because they never
So
tested it on
awful.
pregnant women.
Yeah, it's so awful.
Yeah. And then there was 100 years ago when uranium was discovered, they used uranium as a chemical to glow in the dark. So they would paint clock faces with it.
I mean, it did glow in the dark.
Yeah. But mainly women in the factories,
Yeah.
for the laugh and a joke while they were working, would paint the teeth with it, would paint the noses with it, and then wash it off later after work, sit in the dark. And they all developed cancers and all died
What a surprise.
because nobody knew how dangerous uranium was at the time.
Yeah.
So let's look at what people are actively eating. So we all have heard the phrase soy boy,
Yep.
which is always a weak man who likes
For a
his
reason, actually.
soy milk,
Yeah.
cafe latte, and
Yeah.
he's eating his vegan sandwich and eating his vegan soy based chicken burger. And that's quite apt because if we look at soy has a chemical in it. So first of all, we don't know if soy is bad for us or not.
Right.
Now, soy in its natural form can't be bad for us. The Chinese have been eating it for
It's
for
probably fine.
centuries, and there's billions of them.
Yeah.
So in itself, it can't be. But soy today is chemically enhanced. It's turned into goo. It's not the soy that the Chinese
Right.
eat.
So there's an industrial process
Yes.
that it goes through to extract a bunch of this. This is arriving at the sort of seed oil argument as
Yeah.
well, which I have to say I have been fully radicalized by. Don't worry. Yeah. Again, industrial process. We could do this. Yeah, but did you know what the consequences would be? No, of course we didn't know what the bloody consequences would be.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
Yeah. So I'm not saying soy's bad because we don't, even the chemically
it's
enhanced.
probably not in its natural state.
It isn't in its natural state, but we don't know what we're doing to it, and we're trying to work that out yet. So scientists are looking into this, but there's no firm evidence either way yet. So I need to make that clear.
This is confirming all of my biases. just
No,
for anyone who's
absolutely.
wondering.
So,
I knew it. I knew
so
it.
the point of my section really was,
Yeah.
why do I care? Why do I care what men are doing to themselves, either intentionally by eating soy or becoming too girly, or why do I care
Being
that men
poisoned by estrogen.
being changed into inferior versions of women? Why is it my business?
I mean, do you have kids?
No.
Right. Well, I do.
Yeah.
I have sons
Yeah.
specifically.
I've got a granddaughter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've got a son. I've got two sons, and this bothers me a lot.
Yeah.
I do not want to essentially betray my sons into being forced into essentially becoming women.
Yeah.
It's
So
awful.
you've got a direct link there.
Yes.
So I'm like you, probably, well, like you, definitely like you. I'm a big believer in let adults do what they want to do,
Sure.
unless it's as long as it's within the law and not hurting anybody else. So if a man wants to do these things, turn himself into a woman slowly over time, let them do that. But I've come to the conclusion now that this is all harming society.
Yes.
And the examples I can give you would be, if we had stronger men in the homes living with our children, do you think we'd have the grooming gang scandal?
No, we probably wouldn't have the level of crime we're getting in certain communities either.
Exactly. If we had real men who were police officers, do you think they would have arrested and stopped the grooming gang scandals at the beginning instead of going, oh, we don't want to be called hurty names?
It was incredibly political. And,
Yeah.
and in a way, I can understand why they essentially totally dropped the ball. It's not justification for it and doesn't make it okay. But it's
Would strong men have...
strong men would certainly have blown the whistle on that.
Exactly.
And that's why certain unnameable Lord Voldemorts are the sort of people I'm never going to just throw under the bus. No, it takes a lot of courage, and it was the right thing to do. And I don't care what you think of that person.
Exactly. It would have been the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Do you think we'd have the energy crisis we've got today if we had strong men
No.
in politics 20, 30 years ago who were putting the future of the country
Well,
first?
do you know what's really interesting? Nick Clegg, when he was Deputy Prime Minister, I saw this the other day, and I was just doing my nut. There's a quote of him from like 2010, where it's like, well, it'd take us like a decade to get nuclear power plants ready. What would be the point? And it's like, yeah, it would have been really useful to have
Had them now.
Yeah, exactly. To have had him now. Yeah, exactly. It would have been really useful, Nick. It was only a decade. It's not that long.
No.
Like, God, we were expecting to survive. But yeah, it's insufferable.
Because we had weak politicians taking the easy choices,
Yeah.
and easy choices were what's going to get me re-elected in 3 years' time, where what they should be thinking is what's best for this country 10, 20, 30, 50 years down the line,
And just
that I'll never get credit for, because I don't want credit for it. I want to do the right thing.
But you would get credit. That's the thing. You know, if you began the program, you would get the credit. But also, it's more about, for me, it's just what's the right thing to do. You know, can we just start doing the right thing? Is that too much to ask?
They would argue they did do the right thing because what they did got him elected again.
Yeah, well,
So
that's not the right thing, though, because lying, therefore, becomes the right thing to
Yeah,
get you
yeah.
elected. And that's obviously not the question. The question is a much higher order moral question of what is the right thing in and of itself to do. And of course, you know, in this case, probably not pump the water we drink with estrogen so our boys come out effeminate. That's probably not the right thing to do. Building the nuclear power plants would have been the right thing to do. Like, it's
But weak men don't make the tough decisions.
That's right.
They make the easy decisions.
They don't take
Hence
responsibility.
why they're weak men.
Yep.
Do you think we'd have the immigration crisis, the illegal immigration crisis, if we had real men in positions of power going, this is like an invasion, we stop this today? Or do we have weak men who go, oh, European court might call us hurty words and have told us to stop the flight, so we've had to stop it?
There's this is driving me
It's-
mad,
yeah,
Nick.
yeah, yeah. But this is why I wanted to talk
Yeah,
about it, because it's not just about
Yeah.
me saying to somebody who is, who likes to moisturize, I don't like your lifestyle. It's like, no. Your actions are now beginning to damage the fabric of society, because you're negating your personal responsibility of being a protector and being a provider, and everything comes from that. And now we're falling apart.
And you know what? Right, it's not even about things like moisturizing. I actually don't care if, you moisturize your face. What I care about is that you're not prepared to stand on the points of principle in which you should stand and take responsibility in the face of the screeching criticism from left-wing soy boys. That's the problem.
Men are designed to be protectors and providers of the tribe, not its social workers.
Yes.
And that's what men are beginning, some men, the weak men, are beginning to think is their job, to be the social worker of society.
And they've forgotten how to make the moral argument for the kindness that is drawn from strength rather than drawn from softness. Because it's not kind to abolish the barriers that children require in order to know right from wrong. That's not kind, but it requires strength, and you have to uphold it, and you have to be, in some ways, how to describe it? You have to have the fortitude to just say no, and it's not, and to hold that. Where it seems, and they might cry, they might be like, oh, but I'm sad. It's like, yeah, and you will be sad, but trust me, this is the kind thing for me to do for you, to make sure that in the future you can get past other problems that I won't be there to solve for you.
Exactly.
That's the kindness.
A parent and a leader have one thing in common. They have to make decisions that may not be popular right now with your child or with the citizenship, but they've got to look at those individuals in the future.
Yeah.
Just making you happy today isn't a guarantee you're going to be happy for the rest of your life. It's a short fix.
And if anything, it could definitely make things worse. Like
Yes.
I could give my children sweets all day, and they'd be like, "Oh, brilliant! Dad's wonderful,"
And then the fat with diabetes.
and their teeth would fall out.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, "Well, sorry, son. I know I did that to you, but I kind of did it for my own vanity there,
Yeah.
because I just wanted you to sing my praises all day, rather than looking out for what was in your best interest."
Yeah. No, absolutely. And if we have the last image. So
Oh, that's another question. How are we going to defend the country?
there's always someone, there's always going to be an evil horde that's looking at your front gate.
Yep.
There's always a problem, a military problem coming down the path. We don't know what it is yet. I'm 100% will have a war with China in my lifetime at some point.
I think so.
But we never know how the world changes. Several years ago, we never would have imagined Putin would have invaded part of Europe. Things change, and we need to have strong men who are prepared to guard that gate, and weak men are not prepared to do that. And we need strong men who understand that their lives are not as valuable as the survival of the tribe. Because when those barbarians come through that gate, who do you want stood between you and between the savages and your family? Do you want a soy boy who's saying to them, can't we all just get along and be friends? Or do you want a guy with an AK-47 who's willing to put his life on the line to save your children, because your children are the future of the civilization? And that's a choice we need to make.
I mean, this speaks to the entire destruction of the metaphysics of masculinity, like the noble heroic self-sacrifice. But anyway, I guess we'll leave that one there.